Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. This week, we're going to tee up another deep dive into the world of golf. And we've got a ton of really interesting stuff to talk about. You've been keeping up with the latest swings on the green, right?
Of course.
So let's break down everything from Scottie Scheffler's latest victory to some interesting stuff happening on the Asian Tour and even a surprise win at the Nedbank Challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And while Scheffler's just dominating right now, the way his recent win at the Hero World Challenge is going to affect his ranking with this new OWGR system is really interesting.
Okay, so let's start there. Scheffler's performance at the Hero World Challenge was pretty mind-blowing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
6 strokes ahead of the field.
Oh, yeah.
Finishing with a 63 in the final round. And only 2 bogeys for the whole tournament. I mean, is this guy even human?
It's just incredible. It really puts him in a league of his own right now. When you consider his whole 2024 season, winning the Players, the Masters, the FedEx Cup, even Olympic gold, I mean, it's clear Scheffler is just playing on another level. But this latest win, as decisive as it was, doesn't actually mean a huge jump in his ranking.
And that's because of this new OWGR system, right? Can you explain how that works? For those of us who might not be totally up to speed on all the details.
Sure. Think of it like a curve. You know, the kind you see in school, where the points are given out differently based on how hard the test was. In this case, the test is the tournament. The tougher the field, the more ranking points are available.
Okay, I'm following you.
So even though Scheffler crushed it at the Hero World Challenge, it wasn't against the toughest competition, meaning fewer points.
So events with a weaker field, like this year's Hero World Challenge, aren't going to shake up the rankings that much.
Exactly. And this is already making people wonder how the new system will change how players decide which tournaments to play. Will they chase those bigger ranking points? Or will they stick with the more prestigious events, even if the competition isn't as strong?
That's a great question.
It's definitely something to watch as the 2025 season starts.
But getting back to Scheffler for a second, there was something else about his game that I found really interesting. He was trying out a new claw grip for his shorter putts. What's that about? Is he trying to fix something that isn't broken?
Well, that's the thing about athletes at that level. They're never satisfied. Even when they're winning, they're always looking for ways to be better. Maybe he's found some small weakness in his short game. Or maybe he's just experimenting to stay ahead of everyone else. It reminds me of that famous quote, the greatest enemy of good is better.
Oh, I like that. And we can't forget that amazing moment with Tiger Woods handing Scheffler the trophy. You could just tell how much that meant to him.
Oh, absolutely. I think Scheffler even said something like, it's pretty surreal anytime you get in the same room with Tiger, but it's definitely pretty surreal having him hand you a trophy at the end of the day.
That bad.
It shows that for these guys, it's not just about winning, it's about legacy and where they stand in golf history.
For sure. But while Scheffler's win at the Hero World Challenge was a big deal, there was another tournament going on at the same time that had some pretty serious implications for the rankings, especially when you consider this new OWGR system. The Asian Tour's SoftBank Investment Advisers event, won by Joaquin Niemann, actually had a tougher field, wouldn't you say?
That's right. Remember, the new system rewards wins against tougher competition. So even though the Hero World Challenge has all that prestige and history, the field just wasn't quite as strong as the one Niemann had to face.
And Niemann beat some big names from Livy Golf, including Cam Smith and Caleb Surratt. I mean, you have to admit, it's a little crazy to think he got more ranking points than Scheffler for that win, even though Scheffler won by such a huge margin.
Yeah, it really shows how this new system is going to change things. But as impressive as Niemann's win was, it still puts him just outside the top 50 in the world rankings.
And the top 50 is important because
that's what gets you an invitation to the Masters.
Right, of course.
It'll be interesting to see what Niemann and other players do in the next few months to try to secure a spot at Augusta.
Speaking of the Asian Tour, let's not forget about John Catlin, who just won the Order of Merit. How does that fit into this whole ranking puzzle?
That's where the federation ranking comes in. See, the OWGR isn't just about how you do in individual tournaments. It also looks at things like your performance over a whole tour season. So Catlin's win on the Asian Tour guarantees him a spot in the PGA Championship and the Open next year.
So even though we're talking about Scheffler being so dominant, it's clear that big things are happening outside of the PGA Tour too. And this new OWGR system is really highlighting that.
Absolutely. The global landscape of golf is getting more and more interesting all the time. But before we go too deep into that, Let's rewind to the Nedbank Challenge for a minute. Did you see that finish?
Oh, you mean how Aldrich Potgieter was leading going into the final round?
Yeah.
Then he just completely fell apart?
Yeah.
And Johannes Veerman swooped in for the win?
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it was a nail-biter.
It really shows how fast things can change in golf. 1 minute you're in control, the next minute you're watching someone else celebrate.
Totally. Okay, so before we get into Veerman's surprising victory, I think we need to talk about this OWGR system a little bit more. I think we need to break it down even further so everyone listening can really understand how it works and why it matters.
You're right, it's a pretty big deal. To understand how this will affect the game moving forward, so to really get this points distribution curve, imagine a pie chart where the whole pie is all the ranking points available that week. The bigger your slice of the pie, the higher your ranking.
Okay, I can picture that. So how does this curve decide how big each player's slice is?
Well, the curve comes in when you think about how strong the field is. So picture a tournament with all the top players in the world. That pie would be cut into a lot of really small slices because everyone there is amazing and every win is a huge deal. But now imagine a tournament with players who aren't ranked as high. The pie would have way fewer slices, and each slice would be bigger, meaning more points for the guys who do well.
So it's kind of like the OWGR is trying to make things more fair.
Yeah.
You know, a win against really tough competition should mean more than beating a bunch of lower-ranked guys.
Exactly, and that's why Niemann's win is so interesting. He might not have won by as much as Scheffler, but he had to play against a tougher group of guys, so he earned a bigger piece of that ranking points pie.
That makes sense.
This new system is all about rewarding how well you play compared to who you're playing against.
Okay, I get it. But how does this new system work for someone like John Catlin? You know, he just won the Asian Tour Order of Merit.
Well, remember that federation ranking I mentioned before?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a mini ranking system inside the overall OWGR. Each big tour, like the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and the Asian Tour, they all have their own Order of Merit, which keeps track of how a player does over the whole season. And the OWGR uses those season rankings and gives out points based on that too.
So even though Catlin hasn't won a ton of individual tournaments, playing well all season on the Asian Tour got him a spot in 2 majors next year.
Exactly. This federation ranking makes sure that playing at a high level all season long is rewarded even if a player didn't have one huge win. It's about recognizing all different kinds of success.
Wow, the OWGR is a lot more complicated than I thought.
It is, but it's all designed to really figure out who the best golfers are in the world. No matter where they play or what tours they're on, it's making the game truly global.
Okay, that makes sense. So now that we understand the OWGR a little better, let's go back to that crazy finish at the Nedbank Challenge. You mentioned how Aldrich Potgieter had a big lead going into the last round, but then he just couldn't hold on. What happened?
Well, pressure can be a tough thing to handle in golf. Potgieter is a young guy with a lot of potential, and it seems like the pressure might have gotten to him. He shot a 75 in that final round, including a tough bogey on the 18th hole, which gave Veerman his chance.
And Veerman took it. You got to give him credit for staying focused under pressure like that.
Yeah.
But tell me a little more about Veerman. I mean, he's not exactly a household name yet.
He's American, actually, born in Orange County, California. But he's been playing on the DP World Tour for a while. He won the Czech Masters back in 2021, so this isn't his first win in Europe.
So this win at the Nedbank Challenge is a pretty big step for him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It puts him on the map. And after how well he handled himself in that final round, you can bet people are going to be watching him closely from now on.
This brings up a really interesting point. We've got Scheffler dominating on the PGA Tour, Niemann making noise on the Asian Tour, and now Veerman coming up big on the DP World Tour.
Yeah.
It feels like golf is becoming a truly global game.
It really is, and that's one of the most exciting things about where the game is going. The OWGR isn't just a ranking system. It's a sign that golf is becoming a truly international sport. It's not just about the PGA Tour anymore. Players from all over the world are competing at the highest level, and that's great for the game.
So as we look ahead to next year, what are some of the big takeaways from what we've talked about so far?
Well, first of all, there's no question about it. Scottie Scheffler is the guy to beat right now. He's playing some of the best golf we've seen in a long time, and it'll be really interesting to see if anyone can challenge him.
But as great as Scheffler is, we also have to remember that professional golf is changing. This new OWGR system is shaking things up and is making things more competitive for players all over the world.
And that brings us to our second big takeaway, the rise of global golf. We're seeing amazing players coming from everywhere. Guys like Niemann and Veerman are proving they can play with anyone. This new OWGR system is giving them a chance to shine, and it's making the game more exciting for fans all over the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just follow the PGA Tour anymore. You have to keep up with what's happening in Europe, Asia, and everywhere else golf is played if you want to really understand the game.
It's a whole new world out there, and the competition is fierce. Speaking of fierce competition, remember earlier when we were talking about Scheffler and how he might be trying to fix a weakness in his game with that new claw grip? Well, it reminded me of something Jack Nicklaus once said. The most important thing in this game is to be able to play poorly well.
Play poorly well. What does that even mean?
It's all about minimizing your mistakes. Even the best players in the world have bad days, but the great ones, they know how to handle those bad days and still come out on top. It's about turning a double bogey into a bogey, or even saving par when it feels like everything's going wrong.
So maybe that's what Scheffler's doing with that claw grip. I mean, even though he's winning all the time,
Yeah.
he's still looking for any little advantage he can get. You know those ways to save a stroke or two, even when he's not playing his best.
Right, it's that constant drive to improve. That's what separates the good from the great.
That's great advice. And it really connects back to what we've been talking about. Just like this new OWGR system, it's all about adapting and finding ways to be successful, even when things aren't perfect.
Exactly. Whether it's figuring out this new ranking system or dealing with a bad lie in the rough, success in golf, and maybe even in life, often comes down to resilience and a willingness to roll with the punches.
And speaking of unexpected, Veerman's win at the Nedbank Challenge really came out of nowhere. It makes you wonder, who else might be ready to have a breakout year in 2025?
That's what makes this sport so great. You never really know who's going to step up. But with this new OWGR system, I think it's going to be even more exciting to see how all these players from different tours, with different backgrounds, compete against each other for those ranking points.
So as we wrap things up here, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
Pay attention to the global game. Don't just focus on the PGA Tour. There's incredible golf being played all over the world, and the new OWGR system is proof of that. Explore the different tours, the different players, the different styles of play. You might be surprised at what you find.
It's a whole new world of golf out there. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time. And until then, keep your eye on that global leaderboard.